Okay, we're on. Okay, I will get you to introduce yourself for the people who are listening and watching.
Okay, my name is Elias. I'm half Greek, half American, or half American, half Greek.
50-50, either way.
Well, I think there's quite a bit of Hellenic blood in my veins. And the rest is more technical. But I do know my classics and my classicals. I'm ancient, pretty ancient, born in the previous century. Somewhere in the mid 60s, I would say.
Yeah, okay.
And living and growing up in the 60s and the 70s in America. That's the time when you have the JFK assassination, you have the Martin Luther King assassination. Things that we are seeing today were also very visible and very dynamic back then, talking about protests and demonstration and violence. But you also had some great moments with the moon landing and the whole space.
Are those things you remember?
Those are things that I remember. Of course, vaguely, but after watching everything on TV and on YouTube, you actually can say to yourself that I was around when this was happening. And they kind of become part of your own personality. They stay with you. They have an impact on you. So, typical Greek American household in Chicago.
Is there such a thing? Typical
Yes.
Greek American? I mean, I don't know.
Please, I refer you or just watch the movie My Greek Fat Wedding.
Oh, My Big Fat Greek
My
Wedding.
Big Fat Greek Wedding with Nia Vardalos. And that's it. It's not the typical Italian family. It's not the typical Jewish family. It's the typical Greek family. I mean, they've been going to America as immigrants as early as the 1850s, 1860s. So there's a whole other Greece. It's more of a tzatziki, moussaka, and oppa kind of Greece.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, like more popular.
Yeah, more touristic, more popular, especially as we get into the younger generations. But there's some Greek traditions, and things are still done the way they're done in the old country.
Yeah, so this is where you started, and so between that, which has been a few years as well, and now you're in China with me. We're kind of stuck in China.
Yeah, we're very much stuck in China until China decides to open up to the world again.
And the world also, I think.
And the world also. But it's not bad. I mean, look at us.
I think there's worse places to be.
There are many.
Which is, I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear that they would think.
But that's the truth. I mean, China went through this whole pandemic thing like a pioneer of it all, and a trailblazer of it all, and can show the world what to do and not what to do to come out of it in 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay, and regain some sense of normalcy again.
But they also.
But the world isn't following.
Well, that's true, but also, the world has different systems of government as well.
And the world doesn't understand China. I mean, you really have
that's true. If you live here,
be here. You really have to be here to understand what the diligence they have, the loyalty they have to the homeland. I mean, and it's time like these, moments of crisis where it's hard to say it, but it's the truth. I feel and I'm sure you do as well, safer in China than I would right now if I was in America or you were in Australia or anywhere like that.
Yeah, I'd have to say, well, Australia's a sort of funny situation because there's a few states, like Victoria has been, it's like, second wave kind of thing scenario. And so they've been shut down again, and that's sort of like, I don't really know the full story, but it sounds like it's like martial law style if you can't go across the borders and all that sort of thing. And I know that in Western Australia, there's a mining magnate who is trying to sue the West Australian government for closing its borders. And
good luck with that.
Yeah, so, but definitely, I mean, even before the virus, before COVID and that, I definitely felt safer in China. China's feels like a very safe place to be.
They seem to have understood what to do, and they certainly, I mean, the authorities, they understand how to control the people in a good way, and they manage to come out of it pretty much the same way they went into it, with very few casualties. I mean, even at the beginning, it was restricted and limited to a certain area. And if you think of the vastness of China and the population of China, that tells me that they had it under control since early on. Not from the beginning, but early on, quite early on. And I mean, we're just being patient in a kind of Zen sort of way, and waiting for international travel to resume.
Yeah, for sure. But it's definitely been going through quarantine and things like that were, definitely sort of a trial, I guess, of sort of not being able to go out for 14 days or
I really
whatever.
hope that the world would take some of the lessons of handling the pandemic the way China did it, and we would not have nearly 20 million cases worldwide right now, and advanced nations like the US or Italy or Australia, Germany and so forth, to be at, such a loss at what to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, you see some places like in Europe have handled it better than other places in Europe.
Exactly.
Like it seems government systems have
exactly.
some have taken the run with the ball, and done a good job, and some have tried the lockdown sort of situation. Others have sort of not gone with the lockdown and gone with the herd immunization mentality as well.
But it gets down, I think, to each individual citizen of any country we're talking about, and each individual household.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to consider basic things like wearing a mask and keeping your distance from other people, and not thinking about the elderly or other vulnerable groups, that's culture. That's civilization. That's not just good manners at a banquet or at a dinner. That's survival, and that's if you have humanity and if you care about your fellow human being or not. So no matter what measures countries will impose as a general guideline, and what restrictions they're going to apply, and even punishments, it really comes down to each one of us, no matter where we are.
Yeah, I see in Australia they've just had the first case where a girl or a woman has been sentenced to jail time.
I read that
for skipping the borders. But yes, the whole world is going through quarantine. But let's get back to you.
Okay.
And so were you born in America?
I was born in America.
Yeah.
and I stayed in America until about my mid-20s. But my parents, they were Greek immigrants from the old country. And first my parents moved to Greece after my dad retired. And eventually I just began visiting them more and more. So after I was done with my studies in the States, you know, there's not one America. There are many Americas.
Yeah.
And some people, I guess I'm one of those kind of people. I am not so much for the pharaonic, the really monumental and monumentous side of America. Like it's
America World Police.
Like its vastness.
Okay? Oh, okay. Yeah,
its vastness and its whole concept or world order and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So I chose to return to Greece and start my life there.
What age are we talking there?
We're talking in my early 20s.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So university, after university?
This is after university.
Yeah.
And also before master's. So went back to the States, did that, came back again, and finally stayed. And Greece is a beautiful country. Greeks are very idiosyncratic. They're not good at following orders or commands. They're prima donnas. They're very much part of the whole idea of Greek tragedy and Greek comedy, and the way they, these concepts sort of become the ups and downs of their lives. Okay, so there's like this really happy moment at one time, and then you go into a deep, depression and sorrow and tragedy, and they just go from one side to the other side. Not very productive, not very keen on success and ambition. There is no Greek dream unless that means you want to work as a public servant and not work many hours a day and have your summer apartment on one of the many beautiful islands that Greece has, and enjoy a 2 to 3 month vacation in the summer, because the summer is really long and beautiful.
Wow.
So I wasn't...
It sounds very peaceful. It sounds very relaxing.
I wasn't your typical Greek either. I wasn't your typical American in Greece, and I wasn't your typical Greek either. So I went into a career of marketing and advertising.
Yeah. That's how you know about Iacocca.
Iacocca?
Yeah.
Oh, he was in school. Oh yeah, he was in school. We did Lee Iacocca, and even before, when he was vice president of marketing in Ford, way back in the 60s and the 70s, when they didn't even know what marketing was.
Yeah, right. And when you say he was at school, studied.
He was studied in school. I mean, business case studies of Ford and afterwards Chrysler that he took over, and how he managed to turn around the company and make it not just viable, but one of the most profitable auto industries in America again. And
I think you were telling me that you thought that the representation of him in Ford versus Ferrari was like pretty spot on.
Yeah, because he was coming from a world of the future that nobody understood.
Yeah.
Okay, and even today you can ask business students, like, what is marketing? And you're going to get either textbook answers, or you're going to get a bunch of answers which are like perception. So back then, and that's what I liked about the film, was he was trying to explain that marketing is not sales. Marketing is everything that gets the customer into the dealer shop. So sales is basically, let's just close the deal and you can go off with a beautiful, Mustang or Corvette or a family car if you want. So they were the real trailblazers. I mean, they were the real workers and still are. But of course, things change. It's not the way it was.
Yeah, so getting back to your story, so you're in Greece.
I'm in Greece.
And so what were you doing in Greece?
Well,
did you do marketing and finance in Greece?
I worked for a bunch of multinational advertising corporations that they all had their offices, and some of them had their regional offices in Athens. I worked on different international and local brands, different brand strategies, different advertising strategies, executions, everything from print to TV to radio. We didn't have internet then. We didn't have YouTube, so everything was pretty much above the line media, and also a bunch of promotions and events and PR. Everything that a brand needed, to...
A lot of printing, I imagine.
A lot of printing, even old-style printing, like the printing press. I mean, not as old as Gutenberg machines, but, old-style printing for magazines. People used to read magazines and newspapers, and you'd come across a full-page spread in a Sunday newspaper or in a double-page spread in a magazine, and you would be, wow. I want this. It was so beautifully presented. And it was impactful. It was interesting. It would grab your attention. So those were the days. Those were the days. Mad Men and Ad Men.
Mad Men. Another great series.
Ad Men. Yeah, great.
You would have
series.
loved that series.
I was a little bit after that.
But you would have loved
I watched
watching
the
it.
Oh yeah, I loved watching the series because it was very truthful and very realistic. I mean, not with all the affairs going on, and Don Draper being the Casanova that he was, and trying to be a family man. That never worked out for him, and never worked out for me either, Keith. I mean, ended up with 2 divorces.
Wow.
And blessed with 2 children. So yeah, I can say that I made a career in advertising and marketing in Greece. Seen a lot of things in that industry. And
was it a sleazy industry?
I would not say sleazy.
I guess what I'm getting at is pushing moral boundaries a lot. Like, should we do this? Like, was that question often asked? Should we, or the client wants this?
No, because there is legislation.
Oh, okay.
There are rules to the game. There are red lines, things about competitive advertising, what is allowed and what is not allowed.
Did people push the boundaries, though, do you think?
Defamation of a brand. False testimonies and things like that. No. You could be above board. You could be moral. You could be ethical, and you could put all your energy into the creative aspect.
Yeah, which is great. No,
okay,
it's really what you want.
Yeah, it's not politics. It's advertising.
So, do you think? So this is in Greece, though, right?
This is in Greece.
And do you think...
And Greece is thriving in the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah.
And pretty much the first decade of the new millennium.
Yeah, but do you think... because, like you see, we see shows like Mad Men and that, and it seems sketchy. It seems like there's sort of the soft underbelly of the advertising industry, which is a bit sleazy and a bit dodgy. But do you think perhaps it was like that in America and not like that in Greece?
Well, there are also different eras. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So
because that was the 50s, right?
that's the 60s.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. But what you have in Mad Men is the beginning of advertising, which was pretty much a one-man show on the side of the advertise agency and also on the side of the client. There are a lot of layers in the relationship between agency and client today, and all these layers are pretty much people trying to cover their ass. Okay, before before the actual thing that we're going to do, or the client decides that he's going to do, reaches the top man, and you can't pass the buck any further than that.
Yeah, so it's ultimately his decision.
Yeah, a decision has to be taken. Now, if he's influenced by his wife or his mistress, or simply by the facts and the research and the excellent execution of the creative idea, that's another story.
Yeah. Okay.
But definitely somebody decides on what you're going to see on the TV screen, or these days on YouTube, or the different other media that is being used. We were workers, Keith.
Yeah.
We were workers. Our job is to try to understand what the client wants. We're also trying to understand what the customer wants, and
bring them together.
Bring them together, and also how does the paying customer of the brand, not the consumer, but our client, the advertising client, wants to see his brand portrayed, and how does the customer, the paying customer who's going to walk into like a supermarket, wants to see this brand portrayed.
How they want to believe it is.
Believe it or not, there's one aspect which is science. And there's another aspect which I always found fascinating, which is soul digging. I mean, experiences.
Yeah.
Catch something in the air which isn't quite tangible yet.
Yeah.
All right, and turn it into pictures and sound.
Yeah, the vibe.
Yeah, the vibe, the trend, words like target group. Aim at the heart of the target group.
Yeah.
So that was advertising.
Yeah.
That was advertising.
And so, how long did you stay in Greece?
I stayed in Greece until the financial crisis hit.
Okay, so that must have been a hard time.
That was a very hard time because I had, kind of elevated myself to, and I was getting, of course, older, but I had elevated myself to the more senior positions in the industry. And I just wanted to work another 5 or 10 years and then retire comfortably.
Yeah.
And in 2010, of course, it started a few years earlier, but in 2010, my world crumbled. It collapsed. First people around you get fired. I mean, who's going to care about advertising in the middle of a financial crisis?
Yeah,
that's the first budget that goes.
Yeah, I was about to say.
That's the first budget that goes. So, people around you start losing their jobs, and then before you know it, you lose your job. And you're middle-aged, senior executive, and you're looking for a job, and you see and you understand, because you were in that position, a few decades ago, that they're going for younger and cheaper.
Oh, yeah.
Younger and cheaper executives. And that's when I pulled out my American passport and pretty much decided that Greece was done for me, professionally, career-wise. And I started an entirely new career, I guess I would say it now. But then I was just job searching and pulled out the American passport, took a plane 45 minutes, landed in Istanbul, in Turkey, started working for a language school. And I've been in education since.
Yeah, so did you organize to go to Turkey before you left Greece? So you had a job to go to, or did you just, fuck this, I'm out of here, I'm going to try something different?
No, because couldn't say fuck this. At the time, I had a little baby, my son.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I was recently married, and of course, then I divorced along the way because
You had responsibilities.
of the crisis. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Wow.
Because of the crisis. My story is very similar to a lot of people and things that happened in Greece during those times. So I did a little job searching, and I saw that with an American passport, you can pretty much teach English anywhere in the world.
Great, isn't it?
It is. It is.
It's just...
It is. It's something that a very good friend of mine and mentor has told me. He said, "You're lucky. I mean, you are at an age when other people retire and they want to settle down and just enjoy the rest of their life. But, you're traveling around the world and also making money and also doing something that has become your passion, which is teaching."
Yeah, so in Istanbul, so where did you work? Were you working for a language school?
I found a job in a language school. I'd never worked before in a language school. It was in Istanbul. It was in Taksim Square. It was a whole new experience for me. And I started teaching on an hourly basis for $8.9 an hour.
Whoa.
Okay? And at that time, I was like, okay, I got a job again.
Yeah. Money coming in.
Little money, but money coming in.
Yeah.
And as I got better at this, I started doing private lessons. And because of my background, in business and marketing and stuff, I kind of directed myself and focused on clients that were, business people.
Yeah.
And pretty much left the language school because I was living with a certain degree of dignity just by doing the private lessons.
Yeah, yeah.
And...
well, just as a side,
yeah.
What was the cost of living like there?
Well, I was earning something like 3,000 Turkish lira, which is a good salary for a teacher, even in Istanbul, which is an expensive city. But not a lot of money to save. Not a lot of money to save.
Okay, so you could have a good lifestyle, but...
Good lifestyle, yeah. Enjoy Istanbul.
Good quality of life.
Yeah, good quality of life. Enjoy Istanbul. As a foreigner, as an expat, this was double than what English teachers were making in schools who were Turkish citizens.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
And I think that's pretty much the norm all around.
It does seem to be that way, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's why I think they envy us. That's why I think they don't understand what we're doing in their country, taking the jobs away from them. If they see it that way.
It's understandable, I think, yeah. That,
it's perfectly understandable, yeah.
I think, I experienced the thing to a small degree in Thailand.
Yeah, because they went to university as well.
Absolutely. And and they can speak both languages.
And they can speak both languages, which we cannot.
Yeah, so, it's...
So I came to a point where... okay, Istanbul is great, but, getting older, I'm not saving money. I got to do something. How am I going to start saving money? And sending money back to Greece to my kids at the time. So, again, when job searching, and there are very few countries in the world where you can go and work and not be afraid of a war going on or being, in the middle of a terrorist attack.
Or a coup.
Or coup, where you can go and work, have a decent life, and save money.
Yeah.
So for me, the next stop was Saudi Arabia. And that was an experience. That was an experience.
No doubt.
Yeah, that was an experience.
Yeah. So, and you.
What do you want to know about Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, well, let's get into that. Yeah, it's I know some of the stories you've already told me, but Saudi Arabia is, I think, for a lot of people, for probably not so many people in the world, a place that they've never been or would even
consider going or
yeah.
even having the opportunity to go.
Yeah, definitely. So, first, is it like a draconian place?
It is.
I think people think of it as a draconian place.
It is, but it's the same as China. You can only understand a place like that if you're actually living there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of don't go and look, go and live and
be,
actually
exactly.
and know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I can say about Saudi Arabia, because I lived there and worked there for 5 years, is Saudi people can become your brother.
Yeah.
At some point. They have a lot of sympathy and empathy and understanding for people who are away from their own home, because they're a very family-oriented society. They don't show that. They don't display it publicly. But if you get invited to a Saudi home, you will see that it's very similar maybe to your own house, your own family, your own home, back in your own country. So you have to build a level of trust and friendship.
Yeah.
Saudis know that they're seen, as you said, draconian and isolated from the rest of the world. And they don't like that because they're very curious about the rest of the world.
Yeah.
You find a lot of affluence in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, that's another thing, isn't it?
Not just and not just among members of the royal family, but a lot of families have a lot of wealth, and even the Saudi middle class, which is has started emerging over the last 10 or so years, and is really growing now into a main body of Saudi society. Of Saudi society. You see, they're very modern. They're very advanced. They're multiculturally open.
Yeah. Okay.
But there are things that they will never allow or permit. And things that they will never do, even if they know they can get away with it. As a general rule.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about crime?
Crime is low.
Yeah.
Crime is low because
punishment is high.
Punishment is pretty much, final. Like if it's petty thieving or stealing or anything like that, you get your hand chopped off.
Wow, so that's real.
If it's drugs or if it's a religious issue, you get your head chopped off.
Yeah.
Okay. And
well, there's no coming back from that one.
You can't come back from that one, no matter who you are.
Yeah.
A lot of controversy in Saudi society, but if you want to have and enjoy and maintain some of your Western luxuries, and you just have to be discreet, very private, and keep it to the confines of your own compound. All right?
Yeah, so does that have an effect on how you think? Like, is that sort of in your consciousness all the time? I have to behave this way at this time, and it's okay if I can just be me here, but like other times I can't be me. I've got to be
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. When you go out and you're working with Saudis, unless somebody is very close to you, you have to treat them as the host if you want to be treated as the guest.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you're in their country.
Yeah.
You're in their home. But when you're, in your own space, in your own compound with other expats, and there are no Saudis,
Yeah.
okay, you're pretty much living in a 5-star resort hotel.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Now,
and if you can't do without some alcohol, all right, there are home brews, and everybody's always making something with grape juice from Carrefour.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And sometimes it's very good. Sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
Okay. And there are so many events going on in embassies and places like that. And if you can't do without your Chivas or without your J&B or without your Budweiser, you pay for it and you get it.
Yeah,
but you just can't drink it outside.
Okay.
Okay. You pay for it.
Well, I mean, you
get it.
You can drink it in the compound, right?
You drink it in the compound.
And I'm guessing in the compound you can.
And at the embassy, of course.
Yeah. So I mean, so in the compound you can walk around with the beer.
If it is no, don't walk around.
Okay.
Don't walk around.
Still, even in
drink
the compound.
it if you really must have it. Okay.
Yeah.
You take it out of your fridge and you drink it in your living room.
Okay. So.
Okay. If you really must have it.
Yeah, I'm guessing that makes for a lot of like indoor social events.
A lot.
Yeah, which is fun, right? I mean, dinners and things like that. I'm guessing people would be wanting to have dinners.
It's pretty much like I would say ex-British colonial, places like India and. Okay. Pakistan even earlier than that, and even China, like the concessions in Shanghai and places like that. You do have a lot of social activity going on, but the Saudis are open. The Saudis know where you come from,
and what you kind of are used to doing.
Yes, yes. You can invite a Saudi to your compound if it's allowed by the compound management. Your first action would not be to offer him a beer, or a glass of wine.
Yeah, okay.
But you can definitely have a great time, being among Saudis as well.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get back to that. So
sure.
So you've gone to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And in what capacity?
I worked for an American defense company.
Okay.
And
are you allowed to name them?
That's Northrop Grumman.
Okay.
Corporation.
And do you know who owned them, or is this
like the Pentagon?
Oh, okay. So it's a government.
No, it's not a government, but
But was it like Rumsfeld?
So many countries going, so many contracts, with the DoD and the Pentagon, that you kind of get the impression that it's one and the same.
Yeah.
All these companies, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, British Aerospace, which is also in Saudi Arabia, Australian, I don't know if it's called Australian Aerospace, but the Australian Aviation corporations, they have a huge presence in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, right.
Military.
For my Australian listeners,
that's military.
But I think Australia we don't really think about our involvement overseas much at all.
But you are in Saudi Arabia because it's a lucrative market.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense to be there. Mm-hmm. But I think in the consciousness of Australian people, they tend to think of everything that happens in Australia, and not much is going on outside. I really believe that. I really think that that's kind of the general idea. And then, when you find out, China's buying things in Australia, or Australia's involved in an Arab country, everyone's like,
not just in an Arab country. They're involved in as far as the Middle East is concerned, they're present.
Yeah,
With armaments, with advisors, with technical staff.
Yeah. Okay.
And China is a great example too.
Yeah. I know
it's all under the umbrella of bilateral trade relations.
Yeah. But we say trade, but it's like a lot of it's military, isn't it?
Man, it's submarines, it's helicopters, it's armaments, it's the fancy stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a crazy thing that in Australia we'll use the word trade a lot. That word, like international trade, comes up all the time, but. Mm-hmm. Australians, I think, are somewhat naive about the idea that trade is actually to do with war.
Yeah, it's a very, very profitable business.
Oh, is it not the most profitable business, I think, in the world?
It is.
So you're working for a military...
I'm working for a military. I'm working as an English language instructor, and I'm teaching officers of the Saudi National Guard. These are young gentlemen. Most of them have already been married, 1 or 2 wives. They can go up to 4 if they want. They have families of their own, and they have a military career. And they are the elite of the Saudi armed forces. Because the National Guard is like the Praetorian Guard to an Augustus or a Caesar. They are the elite corps to the king and the royal family. And their life is good. They go through the special training, then they go abroad, and according to what their specialization is, intelligence or surveillance or IT or artillery or whatever, they're going to go to special military schools abroad, and after this general English program, they're going to focus on their specialization. And that's their career. They have a military career, and a lot of young Saudi men aspire to this kind of a military career.
Yeah, now I'm wondering, do you think you ever trained... just linguistically, did you ever train spies, do you think?
I don't know about spies, but we have trained royalty. We have trained male princes.
Yeah, okay. Are there a few?
I got 11 over the course of
There's a few
5 years. I got in my classes 11. The royal family is one very, very big family. Okay. If you start from the top, the king and the crown prince and the brothers and the cousins and the kids and so forth and so on, you get a corporation which is a royal family. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
All right?
Yeah.
Because everybody's involved in something.
Yeah.
All right? So many businesses going on around the world, and also inside Saudi Arabia. So we got a couple of princesses, and we were told that they are, because otherwise we would not see it. They, in the military, they would behave, treat, and be treated like any other officer.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
That's a very good thing.
That's a very good thing. So that says something about them.
Yeah, so like the Saudi princes don't really end up being spoiled brats.
Well, we didn't see it in the military. There are quite a few who, because of their wealth and not doing anything in their life to earn it, they just inherit it, or they're entitled to it. They can be very spoiled. Both men and women, boys and girls. But the Saudi take their military pretty seriously.
I mean, I think for a kid, any kid, growing up and people doing what you tell them to, and really, I think early on you learn that you can say, I want that, go and get that for me and bring it here. And, you kind of learn that, hey, I'm the boss. And I think that can be difficult for any child. I think, some of the students we see have obviously had a bit of that, are used to ordering people around and things like that.
Yeah, I think it becomes tricky when you have a 14, 15-year-old kid and asks, for a Lamborghini or things which really cost money and are status symbols. I'll tell you something else. Saudi Arabia has a large youth population, and a lot of the malls, they have all the luxury brands.
Yeah. Okay.
A Prada handbag for a young girl, that could easily go up to $10,000-$20,000.
Yeah.
Just because of the brand name. And these boutique shops, they're full.
Yeah. Okay. So people are buying them too.
People,
they're available, but they're being bought. It's a market.
Yeah. There's a huge market, and they don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, it's my money. I'm spending it the way I want.
Well, I don't think. Yeah, I think anybody would think that way. In any country.
So what I'm trying to say is that you very deliberately have to decide as a parent to make this a life training lesson for your child.
Yeah.
That even though we have money, son, okay, or daughter, we are not going to buy you everything you ask for.
Even though we could.
Even though we could.
Yeah.
That's hard to explain to a child. Very hard, unless you get to a point and to an age where it becomes a way of life.
Yeah,
so
I kind of...
I don't know how you can fight consumerism when you actually have the money to buy things.
Yeah, when you have the means.
Yeah.
I can kind of see it with a child where you would say to them, so let's say they have an interest in something, and so you get them everything to do with that interest. And then next week, kids, next week, that's not cool anymore, Mum, I want to do this. I think that way you could kind of be able to explain to them, like, well, you've got all this, we bought you all these things and you don't use them. I think people would still say that. Even for, like, young kids nowadays, parents, I think, have that conversation a lot of, like, well, we got you that and you really wanted it and sat in the corner over there for months and months and never got used.
I think that the environment in which a child has to show achievement and effort is the school.
Yeah.
Okay. And not to be compensated for it, for just being a good student, which at the end of the day is for his or her own benefit.
Yeah, honor
in
and
life.
pride,
okay.
honor and pride, and those kind of things as well.
But unless you're somebody like Bill Gates and all the lights are on you, and you're in the limelight all the time, so you're devoting your life and your immense, an immense part of your wealth to finding vaccines and charities and philanthropy and things like that. It's kind of hard to tell a child no. I mean, parents have so many guilt complexes.
Yeah.
I mean, and
children are good at making them have guilt complexes.
Children are excellent diplomats and negotiators. Yeah. I mean, they know exactly how to maneuver themselves and get exactly what they want at any age.
Yeah, they've been hanging around you all their life. They know how to read you.
They know exactly who you are.
Yeah.
They know exactly who you are, how to push your buttons and how to make you feel even more, guilty than what you already feel.
So a lot of those are similarities between the West and the East, I guess, in that sense.
We see it in China.
Yeah, definitely. We see, kids are kids. Kids are very similar the world round.
I mean, the way that the Chinese have managed to, this is my takeaway from China if I leave tomorrow. The way that they have managed to balance between communism and capitalism, bringing...
It's strange.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's definitely fascinating.
Okay,
yeah.
Bringing the two systems together in a way that you can you can still ask a Chinese employee to go into work on weekends and not even get paid overtime, or work endless hours and not have any problem with that and still stay loyal to the company and loyal to the homeland and the history of modern China. And at the same time, here is the same person driving an Audi Quattro and one of the most expensive cars in Europe or America right now.
Yeah.
Like he's driving a Datsun. Okay.
Yeah.
And no questions asked. Easy money, loose money.
Yeah.
A debt society, a loan society, consumerism. And he's not struggling. He'll do what he has to do for the company. But if he wants to get an Lamborghini or a Mercedes SLK or an Audi,
that's like no problem.
Or BMW, he'll just go and get it.
Yeah.
And it's all figured out. How they did that in the last 10, 20 years, it boggles the mind.
Yeah.
But they did it. Yeah. And it works.
Yeah, it does work.
And their life, their life expectancy, their GDP has gone up. The median household income has gone up. Salaries have gone up. It's an affluent society.
It definitely is. And they're also, like you say, their willingness to work.
Their willingness to work without complaint.
Yeah, without complaint. And without necessity, really. I mean, they
and
don't
without
need
necessity.
to work. Yeah. And it seems to be that it becomes more about their own pride and the honor of the family. They honor their family by doing a good job, but also it seems to be rewarded. Like hard work does seem to be rewarded, and maybe not financially, but definitely in other ways that can prove to be financially with, systems and the friendships that you make and who you get introduced to.
Exactly. And this is not the exception to society. This is the society.
Yeah, it works that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the solidarity that one co-worker or one colleague shows to another for the higher cause or the higher vision, which is to advance this nation.
Yeah, it is a very unified vision, isn't
exactly, this very unified vision. It's working, and I have no problem in saying that China, living from the inside and looking at the world outside, I have no problem in saying, because I see it, that China is advanced from the rest of the world.
Well, it's definitely advanced. I mean,
in many ways.
Well, I think recently Huawei, I think, has made it to perhaps number 3 on the phones.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's advanced. Like, regardless of how they've done it. Like, people always think of China as stealing technology. They do. I don't think that that's just China. I think everyone steals as much as they can.
And I think that they are way beyond the reputation of being copycats, okay?
Yeah, I think they're advancing.
They're advancing, not the copying. They're advancing in their own technologies. I mean, they're not reinventing the wheel in a lot of things, and they don't have to, but their quality is
definitely
able to compete, in the world markets right now.
Yeah, there used to be the
technologically, electronically.
Yeah, the thought used to be that if it came from China, it was shit. Like that used to be. Remember, it would be like, oh, I want to get this television, originally, it would be, is it made in Japan?
Right.
You would think,
right.
If it's made in Japan, it's probably going to last. That thing's going to last for a while.
Things still explode and break in China.
Yeah.
But it also has to do with the huge number of suppliers and companies.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're going to find a couple of rotten apples like everywhere. But Chinese products can definitely compete in world markets right now. at any level.
Yeah, I think TCL is a Chinese company, and I remember like being on the mine sites. That just about every TV on the mine sites with TCL. Never had a problem with a TV on a mine site. Now I'm guaranteed that there are people who are listening who are on a mine site right now who are going, bullshit. Like my TV is not working right now, and it's a shit house TCL.
Okay, after 10 years, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, they definitely they're not great TVs. They're tiny usually, or smaller than the ones they give us. But but I think that was the thing that I noticed is that you can trust a Chinese brand.
Now you can, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Whereas a long time ago, I used to think made in China. Like the joke was, if it's Chinese, it's going to fall apart. Like, don't buy.
Yeah, I mean,
if you want something to last, don't buy a Chinese brand.
Well, it's definitely not the Germans anymore. If you want durability, and something to last a lifetime, it's not the Germans anymore.
But the Chinese still think
it's a lot of countries.
The Chinese still think of the Germans as car manufacturers. They want BMWs or...
Let me tell you a very interesting historical point. In the movie, The 800, and I actually asked my friend who was sitting next to me, the Chinese guy, about this. The Chinese National Liberation Army are dressed like Nazi soldiers.
Wow.
And I was like, what's going on? And he said, the German companies, like Krupp, for example, have been supplying everything from armaments to uniforms and helmets, like the Nazi German helmets.
Yeah, okay.
The ones you see in the war movies. To the Chinese, the NLA, National okay, as early as 1927. Wow. So it's very logical that you're seeing this war movie and the Chinese, as opposed to the Japanese, are wearing German helmets and German uniforms and are using German weapons like, the Luger pistol.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was, wow, wow.
Eye-opener.
Really?
And also, there's so many things, I think...
So many things in history that are not remembered, are not forgotten, but they were there. You just have to look.
Yeah, I think a lot of things with China, I think a lot of the world doesn't know much about China. I think they just...
A lot of misconceptions.
Get sold an idea of this is China. China's like this. It's all full of people who eat crazy food and, kill people and, just all these horror stories, and it's just always... The media all the time is just horror stories about China. But, and like when you see something historic and that, we don't even have like a history with China. It's kind of been omitted from Western history.
Yes.
It's like China exists and we know it's there and we know about opium.
Like Africa.
Yeah, but China, has developed and, lots of things have happened, but they've kind of, we just don't tell each other about it in the West. It's not... Students at school don't hear about what happens in China. They even nowadays, I think what they hear about what happens in China is probably on Facebook or YouTube or, Twitter or something. They're not, and really not concerned with what's going on in China.
As we have seen, from our own kids in school, they pretty much don't care what happens in the rest of the world either.
They seem to know, though.
They seem to know. They seem to follow.
Yeah,
but
definitely sports-wise,
sports-wise, yeah. I mean,
American sports is big in China. Very
NBA is very big. Like baseball is very big in Japan,
and they know their states. Like the Chinese students will know American states.
Well, they know the states because they know where they want to go to university.
Yeah, exactly. But my point is, they have an attraction, an idea about America. But it doesn't translate the other direction. Like we could say we're in where we live, and they would just be, what part of China? I think that's in China, right? That's like, is that the north, the south, the east, the west? And for me too, I don't know. I know where Beijing is, and I know where Shanghai is. Right, that's all I got. I got nothing after that. You could tell me where somewhere is, and I have no idea.
Well, you're talking about the most populated country in the world.
That's what's amazing, right?
It's
And people don't know so much about it.
and that's kind of scary, because there's going to come a time, I think, historically in the near future, when China is going to make. I'm not necessarily. I don't necessarily mean militarily, but China is going to make
An impact.
Yeah. On the world. Okay, so
Well, they do now anyway.
They do now, but it's it's going to grow. It's going to get bigger.
Yeah, I think so. I think it must.
It's going to amplify in the future, but the rest of the world, like you said, not knowing China and fearing China or ignoring China, is going to have, I think, an impact on world relations for sure. China is a global player, whether you like it or not.
Definitely. It's hard to ignore, really.
It's very hard to ignore.
I think people do, though. That's what worries me.
And what's scary is that there's still an antagonistic attitude in countries like the United States, like we can challenge China. No, you cannot challenge China. I mean, because it's not just about how many guns and how many airplanes and how many aircraft carriers. It's how different the culture and the mentality is.
Yeah.
All right?
Definitely.
China is a very disciplined,
motivated,
very
motivated,
young, energetic nation.
Yeah.
And financially, I mean, they control the U.S. debt. All right.
Okay, so that's one thing that I'm interested to talk to you about, because I know you know about this. But they like, if China was to withdraw funds from America, they could cripple it, right?
They could cripple it. Cripple it. I mean, we have to take into account the fact that since the Great Depression, all right, the United States has gone through, I would say, another 4 major Wall Street crashes.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that it's always the stock market, which is not a market that is actually producing, manufacturing anything.
Yeah.
It is just the notion of paper, money, debt, loans, the creation of paper products.
Yeah.
Tied into mortgages and loans and debts and the house market and all these things.
Yeah.
But Wall Street does not produce. Wall Street is not Detroit, Michigan, where there was a time when you had cars. It's not Boeing that makes airplanes. It's a paper
tiger.
A paper tiger, okay? Yeah. And what I'm trying to say is the American economy is so volatile and so vulnerable that it doesn't take a lot to shake it or to bring it down.
Yeah.
Of course, you do have the Federal Reserve System, and the political system, which always bailed out the bankers. Okay, even if it meant more unemployment, more people, on food stamps, without homes, poverty and so forth. So, in China, I think the bankers would get executed.
But there's every possibility.
If they try to play a game like that. Or
yeah.
manipulate the economic system. I think the bankers would get executed.
And the amount of shame.
And discredit.
Yeah.
That's a fundamental difference. And I'm oversimplifying it. And the same thing would happen to a worker who would not report to work on a weekend when all his co-workers are there.
Yeah.
Okay.
It would be shame.
It's
Yeah,
shame. That's where it starts.
And do you think
The American worker would turn immediately to help, ask for help from his union.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I know I did the wrong thing.
Get the union to step in.
Yeah.
Get the union to step in.
Help me out.
And before you know it, the factory is shut down, production stops, and you have strikes and negotiations going on for 3 months to get them back to work.
Yeah.
It's a different mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
An entirely different mindset. So if you want to understand China, aside from the fact that you have to come here and live in China,
I believe that.
Try to get the story, because you have social media. I mean, you can go on YouTube. Try to get the story from the Chinese for a change, not just the Americans.
Yeah.
Okay? Not just the Americans and the Europeans. Try to get the story from the Chinese, all right? Or from Americans who understand China.
Yeah, well, I think even to just try and find out about China, like just anything, that's kind of, I mean, of course, there's a lot of propaganda and, things coming out of China. It seems to be only certain things get let out of China. But like I think we both agree, the best way to find out would be to live here. And it's completely different to what you would think. To me,
Very
it was
much.
when
Very
I
much.
came here. And the first thing that got me was just how safe I felt. That was the one that really, I was just like, wow. And also, I guess in my head, I knew that like the consequences for crime are consequences. I mean, they're big, so people don't think to steal. Like, I could easily leave my door open all day and not be worried about anything being missing when I came home. And this also is like how my parents would have remembered the 40s and the 50s, in Australia, that these kind of things were unthinkable and people just didn't do them. Whereas now, shit, in Australia, you're looking to have everything locked up and, you'll still get broken into and, you'll still have things stolen.
I think it's not just the punishment factor here, but we've, going back to it in different examples, it's the shame factor.
Yeah, I think so too.
Petty thieving or stealing or things like that. Just, quick point on the history. I remember studying history in America all the way up to about the end of middle school and high school. No mention of China. It's all about American history.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And it's always from the side of the victor.
Oh, yeah, well, that's history.
Even events like Vietnam, we won the war. No, we didn't. No, we didn't. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. We did not win the Second World War by ourselves. We did not win the Korean War for sure. We did not win the Vietnam War. We did not win the Afghan War. We did not win the Iraqi War. We have not won a war in the last 70 years. What we have managed is to have what presidents have called a sort of dignified, just, that's a foolish word, but it's been thrown around a lot, a dignified and a just peace settlement.
Yeah, right. Like it's sort of like a dignified withdrawal.
A dignified withdrawal with casualties, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, with a lot of American soldiers dead. So if you don't know, if the only thing you know about China is that it's the biggest country in the world in terms of population.
Yeah.
All right. And it's very, very, very far away from where you live. and your only idea of real China is Chinatown.
Yeah.
You know,
and Chinese food and Chinese takeout.
food and Chinese takeout and all that. But you have a big surprise coming in the next couple of decades.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, and you know, the Chinese they're long-term thinkers. They're not thinking about getting re-elected for obvious reasons. But
Absolutely.
But that's not on their mind, you know. Whereas in Australia, it seems like all the shit that goes on TV and that is just this shit over and over. So they're saying this, their shit, we're good. And the others are saying their shit, we're good. And trying to manipulate them to stay in power. And while they're doing that, they're not thinking about a long-term goal. They're not thinking about health. They're not thinking about education. And China's pretty much got all that squared away.
Mm-hmm.
Like health and education, that's not really an issue here.
Right.
And so they're focusing on, well, what are our plans? Whereas the plans seem to be in the West, you know, number one is get re-elected. Then we'll work out what we're going to do.
Yeah, and, you know, talk about foreign policy and trade policy. Hopefully another president gets elected in the U.S. in November. He's going to have to change the policy towards China because this policy has been absolutely disastrous. It's having an impact even on Americans who are in China and cannot go back to the United States, or are in the United States and want to come to China for business or for work and they can't. So it's really messed up. And then you get another president and the policy changes again just for short-term political gains. And the Chinese, they're not thinking like that at all.
Yeah, I mean, it must be, you know, very frustrating for the Chinese where they're like, now we've got to deal with this guy. Okay, now we've got to deal with this guy.
Yeah.
Now we've got to do, and it's the same with Australia. Like Australia does have a, you know, relationship with China as well, being so close, you know, and a lot of, you know, I think China pretty much holds up the mining industry in Australia. And so then they're like, what? The Chinese must be going, what? They want to change the rules again? What? They want to change the rules again? Like, they would much rather, I'm sure, to have something steady that just kept going and it's the way it is and we've negotiated it and this is how we're doing it.
And, you know,
and it's good and we can renegotiate, that's fine.
Something that we can tell, you know, the listeners, okay?
Yeah, and viewers.
Yeah. You said before, you're absolutely right. They have squared out education, health, and welfare.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And their banking system is working fine. And the economy is back on track after the pandemic. At least it's, you know, getting back into full gear.
Yeah.
But what about the new Silicon Valley in Shenzhen? What about the new... what about the fact that China is leading industries in electronics, in construction, in transportation, in medical supplies and equipment?
Yeah.
In it's such a diverse portfolio of industries in which now China is the leader.
And also, I mean, China, I think, would be the leader in the world. They make shit. China makes shit.
Yeah.
They make shit. And they make a lot of shit for a lot of different people around the world.
Exactly.
And other countries are, you know, we make this or we might do this or we do this. But China's streets ahead. And it's funny, it feels like to me, and I'm sure to other people, possibly my age or younger or whatever, that this is a new thing. That China is like, because it's like we were saying before, we were so ignorant about them and so ignorant about our teaching each other about China, right? They're a big, big player. They're a force to be reckoned with in the world. And yet, like you say, not much is taught about it in school. There's not, you know.
Well, let's tell the world, you know, or that itsy bitsy part that's listening and watching that China has been doing this for the last 30 years, but the world is actually beginning to take notice now.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot more, and this is just a preview, a lot more is going to come out of China. Okay.
So, but do you think so I think people who would hear that would think, oh shit, like the oh shit, like China. And I think, we're taught to fear China. We're taught to think of them as almost unnatural people, and having unnatural practices and an unnatural way of living, like that's not Western, and so therefore becomes in our psyche unnatural. And people are like, oh shit, China, is going to sort of become a superpower or whatever. I mean, they already are. But I don't feel like China are to be feared.
I think there are just two primitive, basic ways to look at China if you're an outsider: feared and respected at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. Feared and respected at the same time. And respect is a type of fear.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But what else can we mention? I mean, the cashless society.
Yeah, phenomenal.
No
so
paper
easy.
money, no cards.
Yeah.
Everything, scan a code and buy everything from a house to your McDonald's Big Mac menu.
And also convenience. I think one
huge convenience, accessibility. I mean, these are things that the world is going to see in the next centuries. Yeah. And it's happening in China now. Yeah. Of course, one side effect is you have a lot of more control over the people.
Yeah,
you have
definitely.
A lot of more, it's a police state.
It's definitely that. I mean, don't hear me saying like China is the way to go. I'm not saying that at all. But I think getting back to what you said earlier is that China is to be respected. I think, and not respected in the sense of we just have to respect them because they're so big and like we should never do anything that they do.
No, they're making a contribution to the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And
right.
I think we've got to get rid of this China bad mentality. I think like all countries do bad shit, right? There's not one country on the earth that hasn't done bad shit or isn't doing bad shit, somewhere in their country. And China is a country and China does bad shit, right? And I think the world knows that as well. They're just like every other country. They're not any worse or any better. I think, they're doing the stuff that they do. And we've got to stop thinking of them in a wholly evil China mentality and start thinking of them, they're another country. They're just another country instead of thinking of them good, bad, otherwise, but another country that has a fucking right to exist in the world. Like I see in America, there's so many things going on about race and all that sort of shit, but I guarantee you will never see Chinese lives matter. You're not going to see that. And you're not going to see anything about anything pro-China. And it's like, they don't have the right. China doesn't have the right. And I think to a certain extent they thought that about Russia as well when the Cold War was on. It's like Russia doesn't have the right, they don't have the right to exist in the planet. And I think it gets down to that kind of base mentality of just indoctrination that's handed down.
You're talking about something which is just so broad and so vital. It's really going back to the quintessential meaning of coexistence of countries in the world.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Okay. China, because we're talking about China, has been humiliated so many times throughout its history.
Yeah.
All right. Especially with the Japanese. And even today, if you talk to Chinese young people who know the history, they still do not like the Japanese. Because here you had a small country, an island nation, which pretty much invaded this huge country, China, before and during World War II, and committed terrible atrocities against the Chinese people. And China has been humiliated again in wars with the Russian Empire, with the Ottoman Empire, although it sided, with enemies. Enemies became allies, allies became enemies, and so forth and so on. The world has to understand, as we have living here, that the Chinese are a very proud people. They hold they're very close and to their history, to their traditions, to their beliefs, to their religious beliefs as well. And they are done with the age of humiliation.
Yeah.
So world leaders who are on the other side have to think very hard before they decide to attempt to humiliate China, either in terms of, political or trade or military relations.
Yeah.
The Chinese will not take it because they're strong, they're disciplined, they believe in the homeland, they will fight for the homeland, and it doesn't have to be with guns and planes and cannons, okay? And they know their time has come.
Yeah, I think so. It does seem to be that way, doesn't it?
Okay, so you don't need a bloody bunch of think tanks and lobbies and, fake news and creating this antagonistic mentality that we talked about. You have to understand some very basic things about China, just like we have living here, okay, and interacting with them, and find a way to coexist, because they are making and will be making in the future a much bigger contribution to the world that the Western world right now cannot understand.
Yeah, and also I think a lot of people, again, from ignorance and not understanding about China, kind of think, what the hell do they do? I mean, they think, okay, they make shit. You can literally take just about anything in your house, turn it upside down, and it will say "Made in China."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so they think, okay, that's what China does. They don't think that China is, 1.4 billion people, and some of those people are doing research, and some of those people are doing philosophy. Some of those, it's a culture. It's culture, and these are some of the things that people don't think about. Is they just kind of think China makes shit, and it's the shit that I have at home, and they're kind of like my servants, and they sell it really cheap. If it's made in China, it's cheap, and it's bad quality and all that. The things that we talked about earlier. But they're not, and then Chinese people are not stupid. They're not idiots. And the amount of study and the amount of discipline like Chinese students have, and school students, the amount of time that they spend at school, and also for their own honor to do well at school. I mean, they're not idiots, and they're not just going to go work in a factory and make a plate for you at home that you turn on and says it's made in China. They're doing things, and like you say, they're doing things to contribute. It's not that it's not like they're doing it for world domination. They're doing it to be to be respected.
They don't have the same perspective or ideology for world domination and imperialism like the U.S. has.
Yeah.
All right, because that's the big question mark, and that's the big adversary.
Definitely. There's that. That's definitely that tension, and I really don't think America's handling it that well with China. I don't think they're handling China well at all.
No. The other thing that we see here is that China respects America. China has interacted with the United States since Marco Polo. He was an American, but he opened the road. He opened the way, and we've had Americans here almost as early as the American Revolution. All right. Of course, the British are the ones who had a very big role to play in China affairs in the 18th and 19th and early 20th century. But you talk to somebody who is Chinese, and they want to go to study in an American university.
Yeah.
That's their first choice, okay? They, like you said, they know what's going on in America. They don't go into a lot of the details, and why should they? But if something big happens in America, they know about it. They knew about Black Lives Matter. They knew the name of George Floyd. Okay, so they are abreast. They know what's going on between Microsoft and TikTok.
Yeah.
Okay, they know what's going on. They're not ignorant. They're not stupid. As opposed to the So, to finish this sentence, they respect America, and they have taken lessons from America. And they have applied these lessons into their own business mentality and culture to produce better quality products, to understand how the American consumers think, to establish businesses in America and take over, as we both know, all right, dying or fading American corporations and give work back to Americans again. Okay?
Yeah.
None of this oozes out, from the media.
At all.
Okay?
Yeah.
At all. I mean, who would imagine that you have Chinese corporations who have revitalized entire sectors of American industries and given work back to American workers?
Yeah, it's certainly not something that is on the news, is it? It's not let's welcome our Chinese friends who are helping us out.
I mean, okay, it's business, it's capitalism, but look at this. The Chinese are playing the game better than the Americans. The student is better than the master at this game of capitalism.
Yeah, definitely. Even though they don't call themselves capitalists.
No, they don't.
But it's definitely. You only have to walk down the street here, and you can see it. You can see it.
You can see it everywhere.
Yeah, it's definitely.
You can see it everywhere.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a strange. It's just very strange to come here with all you can come with is your preconceived ideas, and to have them pretty much shot out of the water here is it's very. It's humbling, I think, to a certain extent, where you're like, man, I used to think this, and now it's clearly not that. It's but in some senses, it's part of that, but it's also it's so much more complex and complicated and interesting than what anyone I think gets told about China, and it's almost like the unknown place on the world. And it shouldn't be, really. I don't think China is to be feared. I think China, people should work more towards having good relationships with China. And I don't think, everyone's just so paranoid about China due to, years and years of indoctrination about, just they're dangerous. They're like, China's dangerous.
Do you know the number of students in China that are learning or want to learn English in the next decade?
They all have to, right? It's mandatory.
Well, just give me a figure, any figure.
Oh, I couldn't. Man, it's got to be. It must be like nearly a billion.
Nearly a billion.
Yeah,
it is nearly a billion. Can you imagine what kind of a market that is? For us and those who will follow after us.
Yeah, for sure.
And how important it is to understand, just like you said, approach China humbly and with respect, and you are going to have a good life here.
Yeah.
You're going to earn a decent salary here, and you're going to have a memorable experience here, whether you stay 1 year or 5 years.
Yeah, I think also, like on a larger scale for businesses, trading with China, I don't think is going to make you go bust. I think you'll be successful if you trade with China.
Yes.
You know, I think so many people have that paranoia about, you know, it's like they're sold as evil. It's like China's sold as evil, and you shouldn't trade with them, and you shouldn't, even though, like, I think the majority of countries in the world would trade with China, and yet, like, they don't really talk about it, and I don't think ever talk about it in a positive light.
I think if you look at history again, you will easily find the culprit. And the culprit is the United States. In the case of the Soviet Union, we manufactured a Cold War. Okay?
Yeah. That was a travesty, I think.
That was a travesty.
Yeah.
It needs another 5 hours of conversation, you know. But we manufactured a Cold War. And we've had this conversation before. The Soviet Union, you know, they extended their hand for more understanding, more negotiation, do away with some of the missile treaties and so forth and so on. American foreign policy was always against that, always expressed at the highest level as early as Truman, all the way until today, except Trump, of course. But in the case of China, you manufactured an evil dragon.
Yeah.
You know?
An enemy to be feared.
An enemy to be feared. Someone with whom, you know, is backward and wild and poor. And this also had a lot to do with the Vietnam War and the Korean War.
Yeah.
In the sense that Americans really did not see China as China. I mean, everything was Asian around here.
Yeah, definitely.
So if Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia are Asian, okay, China is Asian, therefore they are our enemy as well.
Yeah.
Okay? Nixon tried to change this, coming to China, you know, 2 historic visits, one to Moscow and one to Beijing. All right, and he did manage to alter the impressions quite a bit. But then we went back to this evil idea. And also because China is so far away.
Yeah.
I mean, so far away. And it's again this ethnic-centered perception of Americans that we are the center of the world. We are the world, you know, dominant power. And who cares where China is? Or, like you said, they just make stuff that I use for 6 months and then throw away, and I buy something else. No. China is much more, and we see it every day.
Okay, now I want to ask you about American politics.
Okay.
Coming up. So there's an election, right? And it's at the end of this year, right? Or January?
It's in November.
It's in November.
Yeah, the new president is sworn in at the beginning of January.
What's going to happen? What do you reckon? Have you been watching?
Again, what a huge topic. I'm only going to say that I think it's time for healing, because this is a great divide between right America and the rest of America, whether you want to call it liberal or Democrat America or socialist America. There are so many labels for it. But you definitely have 2 Americas fighting right now, and America is very divided. And you have 2 candidates. You have the current president, who is adding fire gas to the flame, and it's his personality, it's his character, it's his background that makes him who he is, which is very unfit for the healing job.
Yeah, okay.
All right, the healing job, because that's the job right now. And on the other side, you have Joe Biden, and even if you ask Republicans, even if you ask people who are politically opposed to him, they have only good words for him.
Yeah, okay.
So it's time for the healing, and the one who can do the healing is Biden. And then just be presidential. Put things back on track because they have derailed very seriously. I just want to say something about Biden because I've been reading a little bit about him more. Aside from the fact that he was a very good vice president for Obama, he's a statesman. He's been in politics, in the Senate, which is a revered and respected body of the three executive branches in the U.S. Almost all his life. He lost his first wife and his first child in an accident. He lost his son to cancer. He lost his best friend, John McCain, who Trump talked very badly about, a Vietnam War hero, to a type of brain cancer. He's been seen in consolation acts and acts of empathy and sympathy to simple shooting victims all the way to McCain's daughter and wife on national American television. I mean, if he's not the guy for the job now, okay, I don't know who is.
So that brings me to the climate, right? So he might be the guy for the job, but it just seems that all this seems to be being played out on the media, and social media in particular seems to be, if you don't master the social media, you just can't win an election in America now. You've got to be tweeting, you've got to be on Facebook, or you've got to be on some kind of social media forum it's just like the court of public opinion. And of course, elections are public opinion. They're always public opinion. The public decides who they're going to vote for. But it seems to be like a sort of a dirty, underhanded kind of game at the moment.
And that is the conundrum of social media. On the one hand, you have a very democratic tool, which is social media, in the sense that anybody can voice his opinion on social media, and
educated or otherwise.
And that's very democratic. That's very open. You have to accept it. You can also use social media as a fundraising platform. You don't just need the huge $1 million donors, but anyone can give $1, and it accumulates to support your candidate. I mean, that's how Obama did it, because that's when we actually saw social media really playing a significant role in American politics.
Yeah.
That's how Bernie Sanders did it 2 times. You can contribute even $1. On the average, people were contributing $7, and he had money to run his campaign. But on the other hand, you have manipulation. You have fake accounts. You have examples like Cambridge Analytica.
Yeah, well, yeah, and these are all things that affect it, right? Like, I think,
and you can't tell the truth from the lie anymore, unless you're very educated, and you can verify the information. In Trump's case, that 10 times out of 10 he's lying.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this brings me to an interesting point with the social media side of things, is that I think psychologically, in America especially, but I think even in the world, we think of social media as a Western thing. We've had this conversation, and the idea that it's Western and not global is a trap.
It is.
Because other countries can get involved in your shit. Like, social media is not American voters being influenced by American people.
No.
Social media is the world watching and sometimes getting involved in your shit, in your voting process, in your, choosing who to vote for and all that sort of thing. And a lot of fake news, a lot of things that are thrown in there to fire people up. And, like, for an outside entity, now I'm not saying China's doing this, but I am saying that anyone who had a vested interest in keeping America the way America is, and keeping it divided and keeping it from being unified and strong, the social media is the perfect place to do it.
Exactly.
You can just influence people and make fake accounts. There's none of this sort of thing is checked, and people believe it. I've seen my Australian friends post stuff online that I've looked at and gone, man, how do you know that's true? Like, I'm seeing something and it's been a repost from somewhere else, and you look at it and you think, well, I can see it's got your blood boiling, which is what they're designed to do, but I'm not sure that it's actually real. It's a picture of maybe a man standing over another man with a gun, maybe, something like that type of picture. And then saying, where's your Black Lives Matter now or whatever, the black man with a gun or something. And could easily just be a picture from God knows where, put on there, and it's got the, slogan that's designed to evoke passion and rage and keep you divided, stop you from looking at being a united country. And this is someone in Australia posting that, which is obviously from somewhere else. It's been sent to him because of the Facebook algorithms, that send you what you want. And if you keep displaying that you've got like that kind of bent, these are the things that you like to look at, and you click like all the time on that, we'll send you more. And that might be coming from Russia. That might be coming from anywhere in the world. But we have somehow in our heads thought that these, social media, international social media, is not international. It's just Western. And, that all the information that comes on there has just come from a Western source.
We have to dispel the notion that that there's only Facebook, only Twitter, only Instagram, and only one or two or three world news agencies.
Definitely.
The media scene has changed a lot, and it's changing even more. That's why at the end of the day, it's all about going out and voting. Okay? No matter what influences you have received, at the end of the day, with true or fake information, you make up your mind and you go and vote. Now, and that's where the current, sitting American president is putting all his attention on creating an environment where he is trying to discredit from the get-go the in-mail voting system.
Yeah, he's going with a very much us and them. It's me or it's them.
Yeah,
but there's
that's the divided America.
Yeah, I think America needs to be more social and stop being so social media. Americans need to go hang out.
Good point.
I mean, obviously at the moment they can't. So it's such a strange time to be alive and such a strange situation. But people really need to, connect more to kind of undermine, the social media thing where, if people are connected and someone says this about someone, 100 other people can say, well, that's just bullshit. I know him.
But, on the other hand, we also have to start thinking that maybe America is not this hegemony that we all think it is.
Oh, yeah.
And Trump did a great job of alienating traditional American allies. I mean, in Europe, they know that their big daddy is Germany, okay? In Asia, they know that their big daddy is China. In Russia and the neighboring countries, they know that their big daddy is Putin, okay?
Yeah.
So we should also mention this, among the Muslim and the Islamist world, they know that their big daddy is Turkey's Erdogan.
Okay.
So it's who is the biggest bully and who
has the biggest stick.
Projects this sense of I'm stronger, I'm
going to take care of business.
I'm going to take care of business. You just follow, okay?
Yeah.
So America is not the hegemony that it was 10 or even 20 years ago. It brings us back to the whole notion of coexistence, and especially coexistence of the superpowers, between themselves, because everybody else just falls in line. And it's better to achieve that with trade and commerce and business and brain exchange, not brain drainage, but brain exchange, and scientists, and rather than with nuclear weapons and guns and cannons. But the thing about America is it's an empire. It became an empire. It was pushed on the world stage almost immediately after World War I, and has stayed on the world stage until today. But you look at empires through history, and very few remained empires for more than a century or maybe 200 years. Very, very few. And the United States, became a living national entity in 1776, and we're looking at 2020 right now, and that's roughly the time during which an empire
might start to crumble,
might start to fall.
Yeah,
okay.
And they tend to implode, don't they?
And of course, they tend to implode, and then it's a geopolitical game change, on the world stage. It's going to be a crucial election. I'm not at all sure that Trump is going to lose. He will use every Machiavellian trick in the book. Okay, and they're already talking about him losing and not accepting
the loss.
The loss.
Yeah, I did see something about that.
And that would just be, it's a mortifying thought. It's criminal if you look at the U.S. system and the U.S. constitutional system of power. It has never, ever. It's the equivalent of a coup. It's the equivalent of a dictatorship.
Yeah.
And if that happens, that's where your implosion begins.
Yeah, I have seen or heard that he's made statements, like that, which is kind of mind-boggling. But also, if I was to believe someone would do it, I actually believe he would.
He's the one.
He would do it.
Yeah, he's the one. Americans put him there, and Americans can remove him.
If he wants to go.
no matter what the intervention and the manipulation is from the Russians or the Chinese or the Koreans, but at the end of the day, it's the American elections Americans have to vote.
Okay, well, we'll leave it
Woo!
there. There we go. Hey, it's a bit of a conversation there.
Wow.
Yeah, that's well, it's been good to hear your points of view and a bit about your life as well.
Thank you for this. I never talk this much.
Yeah, I think people feel that way until like it's going, you know, and when it's rolling, everyone's like, well, you just have a conversation, you know, and it's good to have a conversation.
It's also nice because, you kind of take a better look and a deeper look maybe at who you are and what you believe and what you've gone through. You know, my birthday is coming up in a couple of days.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not turning 60 yet, but I'm very close to that. And this conversation with you has kind of been, a cleansing.
Yeah,
and
get it out, what you think about. And, yeah. It's been,
cool.
Well, it's been good. I've really enjoyed it.
Very cool. I loved it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I loved it.
That's been great. Okay, so for everyone, we're signing off now. And, check out more podcasts to come. And thanks again, Elias.